send it to my husband. And I'm like, yes. You have to do that. And then last year I did.
Great. We're still waiting for our fifth board member, Eve Phillips, but we can start with the procedural parts of the meeting and get going. Just want to say this is a special board meeting. We have a 2-hour time limit today from 1 to 3. We have board members who have commitments at 3, so we will need to finish right at 3. We will do public comment after the agenda item. There's only public comment on items that are on the agenda. And we'd like to hold public comment to 20 minutes just to respect everybody's time. So with that, would someone like to make a motion to adopt the agenda?
This is Hillary. I move that we adopt the agenda.
This is that I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No opposition? Great. So next we have the resolution 25-06, sufficiency of instructional materials, and I need to go ahead and open a public hearing. So I will do that. I will open the public hearing, and Sarah is going to guide us through this one.
All right, good afternoon. This is the consideration of an adoption of the resolution for sufficient instructional materials to be sure that every student has access to a textbook digitally, the textbook itself for use in home or at school. So we're asking the board to adopt the resolution to ensure that we have sufficient materials available to all of our students in the 24-25 school year.
This is an annual item. It's just our October meeting's a little too late for this. So.
Any board members have any thoughts or questions on this issue?
No, since it's annual, I do remember this from last year. And of course, we want the students to have what they need.
And I would just say we haven't heard from anyone that we don't have sufficient materials.
No, we have not.
It's pretty standard.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this?
There is none.
Given that, I will go ahead and close the public hearing and ask for a motion to approve resolution -2506.
This is Hillary. I move that we approve resolution 25-06, sufficiency of instructional materials 2024-25.
This is Eve. I second it.
Okay, Trustee Shogan? Aye. Trustee Wiener?
Aye.
Trustee Phillips?
Aye.
Vice President Collins-Coleman? Aye. President Rothstein?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great. The next item is the contract for professional development services with Facing History.
And again, because our board meeting is not until the 21st, and we would like to bring in Facing History organization. Oh, I'm sorry, Sarah, this is your item.
Go ahead.
I just got really excited. Ms. Sarah Costa-Landry will present this item for you.
We would like to bring in Facing History to lead a session, actually 3 sessions on our October 14th Professional Development Day around equity-based practices, specifically centered on civil discourse. And so this is the proposal to engage
Specifically on civil discourse?
Mm-hmm.
And what do you mean by that?
So they're going to be supporting staff with understanding ways to cultivate a community in their classroom where all voices, diverse viewpoints are heard, where students feel safe, where staff members feel safe. Mm-hmm.
We're really excited. Last year, there was a lot of, specifically, we're talking with OIS, right, staff?
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of conversations around what are the best practices, how to incorporate this in teaching of our current social studies.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the ideas, was to bring in Facing History to help them teach our current social studies curriculum. So,
Great.
yeah.
I see that the cost on this is subsidized. Is that typical for?
It is, I don't know if it's typical for them.
Yeah, who is the philanthropic funding
Yeah.
It's their philanthropic funding.
It is.
Their original proposal was a bit above what we would traditionally pay. And so they were able to provide some philanthropic funding.
Because we're
Price.
strict and
Okay.
Yeah.
it's due to their philanthropic
Okay.
It would probably be
goals.
more comforting to know who their philanthropic backers are to provide the subsidy for them.
Like my mouth is moving, but
Go for it. You may contribute.
so I am recusing myself from this vote. But as a board director for Facing History, I see their budget, and they've received money in the past from amazing philanthropic family foundations. Mackenzie Scott gave them $40 million years ago. And so all their money comes from individual private funding family foundations. And so part of the CEO's new vision, he's a former superintendent from Florida, and he understands the budget, especially California. But what he's doing nationwide is if school districts aren't able to pay the full amount, then because we at Facing History have a myriad of funding available, he's subsidizing partial, budget scopes of work for school districts because he understands the constraints, having been a math teacher, having been an administrator, director of curricula, and a superintendent. So he understands that. And I believe he did the same with New York Public Schools, Florida, state of Florida, Memphis, Ohio Public Schools. Yeah.
They did it last year with us as well.
Yes. And for what it's worth, like, I think the conceptually and from what's written here, it sounds great. Like, there's actually a book called Crucial Conversations, which is frequently used in professional context and corporate context to drive what are hard conversations. That's just a great skill set. My only concern is just like not if there's ways of doing this to try to stay neutral. And in fact, because it can be hard conversation coming from all sorts of dimensions, I just want to make sure that the kind of workshop it is facilitated, it's kind of like, neutral to the not necessarily to the outcome, but to whatever they might be incorporating.
They are
right, into the
nonpartisan.
perspective. Yeah, and that we're not missing something. I would hate to find out that, but it sounds like we've got some more understanding of like who's backing this. That it is in fact that kind of driving, which is I think actually critically important from our teachers and our broader community to practice, because we're all faced with lots of debate about lots of topics that we've considered in the past. So
Agree.
Okay.
And they're nonpartisan, and they also, the district back in 2020, held several before that, maybe 2018 too. I don't remember. There were in-person parent ed events with Facing History. And then 2020, we had a few Zooms. Virtual.
Last year for
October
PD.
teacher PD.
thank you.
And we're hoping to actually partner for long term. This is coming up.
Is there any public comment on this item? No. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the contract with Facing History?
This is Hillary. I move that we approve the contract for professional development services with Facing History.
This is Katie, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition?
I
Any
recuse myself,
recusals?
yes.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
So 4-0.
Okay, now it's I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Sarah. I was very excited about it.
Now we'll get to the meat of the subject,
Yes.
so to speak. Okay.
So thank you for that. We just, with the timing of the September, October meetings, it was just convenient to have this workshop and bring those up. But really, the main purpose for us being here today is the nature area conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and put the slides up. So, and just to echo what President Hoxie said, if there are any public comments, the public comment cards are right there, and they should be filled out prior to the agenda item. And then we will hear them at the agenda item. So if you can just pass them on to Angel, that'd be great. And then we'll know how many are here to allocate the time.
Do you think we can get that back TV working so people could see the slides back there?
Sure, we can text maybe Kevin. He's not in the meeting.
Last I heard it was.
It was not, yeah.
Okay, I apologize.
No, it's okay. So, just an overview of what the agenda is. And please, it's your workshop to let me know if you want me to stop, or you want to just, as we go through, kind of, because it's kind of in these 6 sections, a little chunked up. Do you want to talk about it at the end? Do you want to talk throughout as we go? I mean, again, it's your workshop, so please just let me know to stop, pause, answer questions, and so on. So wanted to talk a little bit very briefly of why we're here, the purpose of the presentation, talk through the property and ownership a little bit, maps, and what are we actually talking about with regards to the property, the current status and the reopening of the property, really discuss the vision for the nature area as we move forward, get a clear direction for our staff and then the discussion around the budget and staff resources, and then make sure that the staff has a clear direction on the next steps. So that's where we're heading in the next just under 2 hours. So why we're here, as you know, Wagner Ranch Nature Area is a unique and cherished OUSD property that has been closed to public for safety reasons since the severe storm damage in winter 22-23. And there is a need to determine district's vision and a long-term plan for the use, support, and maintenance of the nature area. And that's really our hope to walk out of here today with that purpose and that vision. So I will say that when we originally planned this workshop, the direction of these slides, direction of the agenda has changed and twisted all throughout, kind of as we've discovered all sorts of things as we move forward in examining kind of how we go through. So I'll talk a little bit about the property and ownership as we understand it today. So I won't go into a whole history of all of it, but Orinda district, the school district obtained the Wagner Ranch property, the parcel from East Bay Mud in 1956. So we're having a good time examining all sorts of deeds and looking at what that looks like and what does that ownership actually look like. So the parcel is a one big parcel, and we'll look little maps a little bit, but Wagner Ranch Elementary School was then built in 1969 in one section of that parcel. So the school and what's deemed as undeveloped area are all on one school-owned parcel. There's no distinction between two parcels, just one parcel. The East Bay Mud owns, it's being estimated around 10 acres. I will say that was, we didn't realize it was as much, but it's estimated about 10 acres of the property that we have been calling the nature area, where the paths are and where the programming has been held.
To clarify, that's 10 out of the 18 or so acres that we've been talking about here. That's what we think.
That's our
right?
estimate.
Yes.
Original, and then they own a lot of surrounding properties.
Right, but in terms of what we've been talking about here.
So we're not sure if it's out of the 18, right, in addition to the 18. So there's going to be a lot of next steps in determining the true acreage there. Original property deeds and land surveys that's what I mean, we need to do exact property lines. And then there has been a good collaboration with East Bay Mud. There's been a relationship. It looks like what we can find, I mean, outside of the fact that we actually got the land from them, and that was true collaborative as well, but also starting in 1978, allowing, as it says in there, for nature study for only Orinda USD students. That's the MOU that was signed on the adjoining property, and we'll look at what we're talking about in that map. The last known permit that we see was in 1978 for 1 year. So really ending in 1979. There is kind of a 2008 MOU that we have, but the East Bay Mud doesn't have it. So that's why I say it's possibly there's an 08 MOU. I mean, if they started really digging, we could probably see that. Still, it's 2024. So all known permits for use of East Bay Mud property for OUSD programs have expired and are non-existent right now. So when we talk about the property and ownership, these are the parcels at the time of the acquisition, right? So that's the assessor's parcel map. So I know it's very small right there, but that top arrow right there points to parcel 2 as it's marked. And I'm just going to sort of outline, this is the parcel right there. It ends right there. That's the parcel that is one big parcel. That is the Wagner Ranch Elementary School parcel. That's estimated about not estimated, it is 33.51 acres. So 33.51.
That's where the school is actually situated.
Yeah, so the school is situated at the bottom of it right here with all its fields, right? Well, sort of like right there. And then the nature area is the undeveloped section. I say undeveloped because actually when we started talking with our insurance company, that's really what they had it insured, is the school side and the undeveloped side. That's how it was written. So that's why I'm using that term. And then all the surrounding parcels are East Bay mud. So then this parcel right here, which is hard to see, but it's 19, parcel 19, is the East Bay mud property. Oh, thank you, Mika. Thank you, Benna. And then the creek, San Pablo Creek goes right here. And this little section, this section right here, all adjoining, is the around 10 acres of East Bay mud. That is the nature, part of the nature area. So I zoomed in, and that's what we're talking about, really. Right there. A very non-assessor-like maps that I did. So, okay, this is just the same map, but more naturey. So you can see parcel 2. What we're talking about is really where the school is, with the sports fields, and what we're calling, our undeveloped area, or the district owned. There's the San Pablo Creek, and then on that side of all of that, on this side of the orange line, and on the side of the San Pablo Creek is all East Bay mud. And then East Bay mud goes on the other side of the creek and the road to their 215 acres. That's one big parcel of theirs. Any questions on that? Okay.
So we don't know right now how big the entire school parcel is.
It's the entire parcel 2, which school and the gardens and the nature is 33.51.
I see.
What I think that we're not clear on is how much is the undeveloped section.
Right. I mean, it looks like it's pretty large, but we don't know if that's 10 acres or 19 acres or. Yeah, right. I understand.
Pretty large is as good as I got it.
I got it.
In orange.
And I tried to honestly figure, I'm like, well, this is why the assessment.
Can you clarify? Is it 18? Is it 19? I've heard.
We've always just said almost 19 acres, but now I'm not quite sure. Is that the 19? Is this, I'm assuming that's the 19 that we're referring to.
Because I've heard 18 or 19.
But we actually don't have those original
documents. Okay.
So it's that red arrow that at the top says parcel 2 you're pointing at. We don't know exactly how big that section
This
is.
section is.
We don't know if it's 10 acres or 19 acres. We don't know yet until we get it assessed.
It's the subset of parcel 2. That's
Correct.
Developed.
Correct.
The insurance documentation didn't call that out either.
They just said
Just said
undeveloped.
undeveloped.
Yeah. And we could dig into that too more.
Yeah, just curious if maybe somebody did an assessment. We can
That would be the
leverage.
survey.
Yeah, that's the next piece. Yeah.
Mhm. But we had in the past, we're pretty sure, used land as part of the nature area. That was East Bay mud land.
We have, yes, all up until the closure.
Okay.
Correct. Well, there's paths there.
Paths
and
there.
Yes.
Mhm. Okay.
And that historical programming and maintenance on the programming piece, Orinda OUSD has a long history of partnership with the Friends of the Nature Area to offer curricular programs focused mainly on local history and nature. And I'll just note that changes in the programming have been necessary due to credentialing needs of staff, staffing, budgets, curriculum relevance, and so on. So that's been identified and I think agreed upon by both parties. Maintenance, I say upkeep of the nature area has been historically conducted through support of the FONA, mainly with the Orinda community volunteers and staff. We feel and have been told that we need to identify a more consistent and systematic maintenance, not just upkeep, but true maintenance of the property to prevent future safety risks like what we're dealing with right now for students and staff and the community, and then also for liability purposes. So a lot of changes needed in kind of what has been happening. So where we are right now, I'm going to go back to my map here, but I'm going to just add all sorts of more arrows. So I kind of think about it now in almost like 4 sections. So I'll start at the bottom if that's okay. So the Wagner Ranch School Garden itself which is right next to the actual playground. Right below the Basque region is our school garden. And I actually have pictures of most of these as of yesterday. Wagner Ranch School Garden, it's used regularly, almost daily, by students, and used in the district-wide curriculum that's used across all of our school sites. So that is pretty exciting, and it looks good in there. Nature, then there's a garden right next to it. The arrow is probably, yeah, it's pointing a little maybe further up, but it's used by our volunteers, Orinda volunteers, through FONA, and they are there on Sundays. It is currently not utilized by Orinda students or staff. Then we have the East Bay Mud property, which is closed to the public due to safety concerns. And then we also need an updated MOU with East Bay Mud.
In general, on that side, East Bay Mud is not put in trails like they have on the other side that are open to people with a permit, I think.
No.
So that is okay.
So,
The other side, I mean, the other side of Bear Creek Road where they have the trail system.
correct.
In that Briones.
Yeah, it's part of the, there's an open space permitted. Yeah, you can't get a permit that you can go in. Okay. Yeah.
The current staff at East Bay Mud is a little surprised about this area. So
We must have known about.
they're really excited to work with us.
Okay.
With the district. Nature area close to the public, again, due to safety reasons as well. So that basically summarized this here as well. I'll just say on the school garden side, there have been a lot of recent garden updates to that area, and they're funded by their Wagner Ranch parent club. We actually have more upgrades coming in, pretty significant in there. I want to say it's coming in this month. It was coming in at the end of the summer, but there was a lot of construction actually happening on the playground, so they couldn't get in there. So there's a lot of new upgrades, and all funded by the parent club. The nature area garden, as I mentioned, is not currently open to student usage, and the supplies and so on are funded, I believe, by FONA, but the utilities are funded by our general fund. The
So
nature,
utilities include water,
water, yeah,
mostly water.
yeah, I believe maybe, I'm assuming there's trash cans there, so I'm assuming that's getting removed, yeah, as well. Nature area, our nature area, OUSD section, as I mentioned, is closed. The main concern are fallen and falling trees, and then some eroded paths. I mean, the vegetation is pretty high up there. I was in there for just a few minutes yesterday, just covered, just even on the paths. It's going to be a lot of to get back.
Reopen, it's gonna.
Nature area, but the East Bay Mud, very similar to the area that's owned by the district. Their other additional issue is that the path that's right next to the creek is completely unusable. And actually when we had the arborists in there, the McNeils, they said that path, they will not even be able to do the trees on it. We would have to create a whole new path in there, or that loop will not be open because it's completely eroded under, or we would have to put in like a retaining wall, which that's not natural. That's not. Yeah. Here's a couple pictures just so you can show you. This is the actual school garden. There's an outdoor classroom. There's nice paths and trees and such. This is the current nature area garden. We usually don't put the pictures of the greenhouse, but that's actually a big feature in there as well. There's electricity too. I'm sorry, I should mention that.
Yeah, I was
Because I
thinking about
noticed
that.
that because the fan was going in there, yeah. The nature area itself is the fire break next to the fence. So actually, when you drive down to Wagner by the parking lot, it looks lovely, and it's cleaned out because of the fire break and so on. So that actually is what it looks like right as you drive in.
That's good.
I don't know if I can zoom in. It is like almost like jungle-ish as you look into going in. I didn't want to go in any deeper because I was already covered completely in stickers.
Top right picture.
Yeah,
that one.
top right. So, and then the kitchen area is also a pretty, it will need a lot of cleanup as well. Okay, so the current status, again, tree damage work. So we've partnered with McNeil Arboriculture Consultants. Gosh, they've been just amazing to work with, just like some of the highest expertise out of anyone we're working with, which has just been wonderful. So they've finished tagging. All of their field work has been completed as of probably 2-3 weeks ago, almost at the end of August, I think. They've determined which trees need to be removed, what needs to be trimmed up. The report of what needs to be done then becomes part of the request for proposal, the RFP. And then they actually would be present as consultants as the tree contractors come in. So that we
They don't
would do
destroy the
that.
trees while they're cutting them.
Correct, or remove some.
What area did they tag?
Well, yeah, thank you for that question. So the reason we actually had to back up is because they said, well, now, the eroded path started causing questions because they figured out, well, actually, we need to fix this path. I'm like, well, that's actually East Bay mud. And that started actually, it's a lot of East Bay mud land. So who's dealing with the trees on East Bay mud? We can't go in there and fix East Bay mud property. We're actually not allowed to. There's watershed. And then it starts coming up, well, there's fish and wildlife, and then the biologists and so on, the wood rats nests, the bird's nests, the animal species. So we now have mandatory consultants for all of that as well that have been recommended and are on standby to make sure that we don't damage any species.
Both on our land as well as East Bay.
So we're now in contact with East Bay Mud as they are looking through original deeds, property lines, and we'll be we're starting working with them to see well, what do you want to do with yours? What do we want to do with ours? And how can we partner on this?
Where's the funding for the consultants coming from?
We paid for this out of Fund 40. Yes.
We have an idea of cost for these additional consultants?
Not yet. Not yet.
We'd have to have.
The board approved McNeil arborists up to 20. They have not spent that. But we have not done the biologists yet.
Okay.
I mean, we know who they are. We've identified and we're in touch. We just haven't done any work with them because once it started determining that the East Bay mudland was bigger and we actually can't do some of the work in the watershed region. And what does that mean? We needed to back up a bit, slow down, and start working with them much more tightly. Yeah. Plus, McNeil is contracted with us. They're the ones we can't go in and do an RFP for land that's not yours.
So every
Right.
time there's we meet with EdMud and.
We're just started.
Tell us,
Yes.
okay, you need a consultant. Or you
I think
can't
we
go
need a
in for
survey.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we
Need to know
just
the property.
started with
Yeah.
them, exactly. We're just going through the titles, the property, and we're going to be going over there and looking at and really determining what kind of business are we going to be in partnership.
At the moment, is that RFP need to be on hold in terms of a final number because we don't know what's what?
Well, the RFP, we were still recommended, at least for our part of the property, but it is on hold for a minute until we figure out, does East Bay Mud want to be part of this? Or are we just going to move forward with what we know for sure is ours? So that's really the other side, East Bay Mud. So the district, we have to work with East Bay Mud. I mean, those property lines are not clear and they're intertwined and it's been really treated as just one big property. So we want to explore what is their interest in this. They didn't seem to really be super aware that they had that, but it is under the watershed region. So there are a lot of rules around that. It's already conserved. What does that look like? What kind of work should they have? Is it blocked off now from the school property? I mean, there's all sorts of rules and there's all sorts of things in a deed of what does that look like, that property and property line. So we really need to work. I mean, that was in 1956. We need to figure out what does that mean for 2024.
They also own a significant amount of the land surrounding this parcel, right?
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
Almost on all sides.
Yes. So
Yeah.
the great thing is
Really on all sides.
they're very willing and open and ready to work with us. So it's not like we haven't been getting a pushback. It's just that it's every day there's a new little peel of an onion that we go and now there's these partners and these partners. It's just, there's just old stuff to work through. So that brings us kind of for the vision for the nature area. As we work through the property lines and the ownerships and cleaning up the area, all of that is also should be driven by where are we going and what do we want to do with the area that is owned by the district. So before we start talking about some options, I do want to point out some considerations and to keep things in mind. Like ongoing funds. The district does not receive dedicated ongoing funds to support the programming or maintenance of the nature area. We just don't have that. General fund, there has not been a general fund contribution to support the nature area outside of these contracts, right? So staff does not, I'm sorry?
That's Fund 40, not General Fund 2.
Yeah, thank you. You're right. Staff, well, some of the legal fees.
That's
Yeah.
true, that's true.
Staff does not recommend using general fund as it would divert from our classrooms and our core academic programming. Our parent foundations fundraise to support core and essential academic programming in our schools. And there are no parent funds allocated towards the nature area. And at this point, there's no plan to do so.
To put a finer point on that, like the parents clubs have it.
Parent clubs and one.
Says like.
Correct.
And at
Considered
the
everyone.
most recent coordinating council, Aida did ask the parents, co-presidents that were present, what they felt about the nature area and what their interest level was, and there was not a lot of support. Then
Funding.
In terms of
Funding.
for
Yeah.
funding,
correct.
no, not for programming, for
Yes.
funding.
Right.
And a similar sentiment from the leaders at one.
They were there
They
and
were, right.
I think yes, to add to that, the fundraising is
difficult.
it's really hard and actually getting more challenging. And our gap in funding of our classrooms is getting wider. So just like in our next bullet, we've actually had to do budget reductions to make our budget happen. So our One Orinda, our PCs support our core fund just budget. They're a quarter of our core budget, or they're specifically our 12%. So I think it would be a nice to have, but this is a must have, right? What they're doing is must haves.
When you're setting up a budgeting committee
Correct.
to
Yeah,
look at the budget
right,
going
exactly.
forward,
Correct.
because we are in a
Correct.
structural deficit position.
So the staff resources, we have recently experienced staffing reductions. So, we've reduced our coaches, our support TOSAs, even in some of our classrooms as well. So we don't actually have a dedicated staff member for the nature area
Or to develop curriculum for the nature.
currently, no. FONA district is currently not receiving financial contributions from FONA to support the nature area. We're not. Liability, district holds all risk and liability for the property. Staff has, in our meetings with the insurance and liability, we have been instructed by our insurance company that we must minimize risk and all negligence in there. We cannot eliminate all risk anywhere, but we must minimize it and eliminate risks that we know of.
Will the insurance company make suggested recommendations on, once we have a full picture or somewhat of a clearer picture of what's happening in nature? Will they, help us or maybe strategize, provide recommendations of what we can do to minimize risk?
Well, right now, they're the ones who they know we can't use it. They know what's going on in there. So that is like what you're doing right now is what you need to do. Should we open it up for programming? They would come in, we would do it just like everywhere else. What's your evacuations? What kind of training do you have to do? What are the medical emergency? Like really almost like as if procedures. Yes,
Okay.
Like it was a site.
correct.
Is the coverage for that area separate from the
No.
elementary school, or is it as one part?
It's for our undeveloped portion. It's like
So it is separate then.
I mean, they don't like outline it, but
Right,
yes.
but okay.
They said we have insurance for the undeveloped portion of the parcel.
Is it a separate policy from Wagner Ranch or no?
It's
under the
it's
Wagner
under
Ranch.
our district
District.
policy.
Okay.
So it is an additional
Right.
insurance that we pay.
That's what I
And
was
do we
wondering.
have to
So
work with
thank you.
DSA around?
Depending what we're doing.
Okay.
Anything on school district's property has to be approved by DSA, depending on what it is.
So we have to do that and the insurance.
So like if you were gonna build any building.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Usually,
No.
I used to always think DSA if it's over your head, but like
Mhm.
we were trying to do turf projects at Glorietta or pathways, DSA was involved.
So they could get involved in pathways within the nature area.
Maybe not like all the way in, but like if we're actually running a school program, yes. I mean, the gardens have to be like accessible, so
Yeah.
topographical map, absolutely.
If we were to put a restroom in there, they would.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It all has to be ADA approved. And we know we're dealing with some things that were not necessarily
Yeah.
100% approved, and we're paying for it now. And that's like for 50 years ago, 25 years ago.
What about the greenhouse? If that gets repaired, does that have to be DSA? If you're
The thing is that like if we,
to start anything, right? Yeah.
like, so if we go in there and say we want to bring a bathroom, or we say like, we're going to fix this path, we have to get it approved by DSA. They will inspect everything that's there.
So the kitchen area.
So I was looking at the structure that was in that picture. I'm like, oh, I wonder, what would that be? And I just bring that up, like I'll give you an example right now. We're putting in a new TK yard that just went through DSA approval process at Del Rey. And they are talking to us about a portable that's unrelated to TK.
It was never approved.
Way down the line. We're like, but this has nothing to do with it. Well, 25 years ago, it didn't pass this inspection. Okay. And so we have to deal with that before we can do this. Meaning when they look at it, they look at the entire facility.
That could
Am I
potentially
depressing
create
you
a
now?
logjam.
Oh, you have to address it.
Even log.
You have to address it.
Address it with the, so the.
You get a lot of
any
notes
facility,
back.
Greenhouse, kitchen area,
Correct.
whatever
is there.
Bathroom, yeah.
Not going into the elementary school.
Perhaps.
We're good at Wagner Elementary because
No, I
it's
think
been all
we are, but I'm
DSA'd out.
wondering how far
Could they-
it
could they-
is.
Yeah.
We just passed all the modernization projects there, so Wagner's good.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, so talking about the vision now that
Understand the. lay
that I
of the
gave
land.
you all the scary stuff. But our reality, right? Why this is also complicated is, I mean, I say other options, but I'm kind of like the directions, and this is really what can drive kind of where we go from here. Because all that stuff is solvable. It could be challenged, it's really hard, it's challenging, that's our current reality. It doesn't have to be our reality, right? There's different ways to get out of those structures. If we know actually the direction we're going in, right? If it just has a direction, what's our purpose, what's our vision, then we can start working towards that. So I'm kind of like, I sort of divided into two different pathways. One being option A, looking at that and examining the entire undeveloped area, clearly not the elementary school, the undeveloped area as a conservation property. I'm going to not define here what conservation is, but really meaning like no programming for students. So, that could be through partnerships of some sorts, right? So what does that look like to conserve that entire property?
By the property, you mean the subset of acres that are undeveloped, not the whole 32.
Right.
Right,
because the school
so-
site,
What you
Area.
call the Orinda Nature.
So all of this.
would we have
basically.
to actually split the property, like formally split the
So
property?
I think if we're going to do some sort of partnership, we would have to split it. Yeah, actually.
Is there any kind of like acreage, what is this area zoned? Like any acreage minimums?
Good question.
Don't know.
Okay.
Sure.
The list.
So I'm just saying that's one way to go is really no programming, open, want to call it open space conservation, right? I say open space, not open to like public because we are right there and that really brings a safety issue. But there are open spaces that can be closed off to public during school hours and limited use and so on. And that could be done through some sort of collaboration. I'm not giving you any much detail, just a direction here. And the other way is to actually almost do like a hybrid, right? So do some sort of programming on a designated area of the property. I say area to be determined because it could be the current garden area, like expanded, or the kitchen area, picnic area, whatever, however we call it, right? Something in there, maybe even bigger than that, smaller, however we decide, whatever the program should drive it, right? The programming needs. That curricular programming would be standards aligned, managed by the district staff, additional staff. However, we fund that. If this is the direction, we would look for that funding. And we would probably, in our conversations, we would talk about that looking something around science, environmental science focused, being that it's in nature, and really connecting it through our science curricula. We have talked a lot. Mika and I have met quite a bit actually with the city last year, and then myself with the city around the collaboration around camps. We have a really good relationship with the city in their usage of our fields and us going back, and that's constantly evolving. And the nice thing is we meet every year, actually, what's working and what's not working. They run camps and, maintain our fields and so on. So we've talked about our collaboration, that being expanded. And if there was a usage of a certain area for them to run camps for our students, summer camp, spring break, after school, I just named those as kind of like recess times. So they could actually run their camps there, use it, and also that supports maintenance so that brings in actually, right?
And if they did that now, those kids who are at camp would have to use the bathrooms at the Wagner Ranch gym currently,
Correct.
right?
Well, yeah.
That's the only option.
We will need to address that. Yeah, that is the option.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's
the
a
only
long
option.
walk Too, if they're depending.
They'd have to
where
have supervision.
kitchen area,
They
couldn't-
have to have
Yeah.
supervision.
They couldn't walk it by themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just on that note, like when.
Unless we opened some different new routes, like towards the Basque in the back or something, because there's Basque restrooms.
This is probably not minor problem, one problem we need to talk about, but like when we do the sports fields, they bring porta potties through. So there are options. You could imagine bringing a couple porta potties for a restaurant.
Right, and I don't know
Just that doesn't, for,
how that works with the watershed thing.
Is that car?
I don't know. Great question.
Yeah, all of it. Yeah, all sorts of
idea.
things.
Maybe put them
Can you
in.
repeat your question?
Yeah, I missed it.
Just because that East Bay mudland is watershed land, there are a lot of rules
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
around what,
Porta potties are,
yeah, and I just don't know.
Right. Waste and all those things. Yeah.
And then if that's whatever the designated programming area, then the remainder could be for conservation, right? Dedicated to conservation. Whatever that
You're talking about conserving the district owned.
yeah.
Yes.
East Bay Mud is watershed. That's
It's
conserved
It's
no
already
matter what.
conserved.
No,
We just need to determine what does it look like property-wise, separation with East Bay Mud connection collaboration. Is it collaborative? Hey, we still use it like we had in the past, but now we have to clean it up. Or is it blocked up? That's what we need to determine. But when I say conservation, we're just talking about ourselves. Yeah. So those are the sort of two that I kind of direction put out there. If the third, fourth, fifth option, please.
One
yeah.
thing that comes to mind is programming and no conservation because it's school district land and just, which is basically what we've been doing prior to 2023 when the trees came down.
except we're not using that entire area for programming, right?
I'm not 100% sure of how much of it,
Part of that is surveying.
some of it exactly is that
What
olive,
actually is usable for programming.
some of it is that Olive Grove area that's up towards the
Right.
Bear Creek Road, right?
But if there is an area that, really isn't suitable for programming, I would be open to conserving part of that land. For me, option B is really, I don't see an option where we don't continue with some sort of programming in that area.
I would agree. And I think offering additional curriculum around environmental science, things that would enrich our offerings to students and curriculum, I think that's so important for our district. And so programming, I think, is essential. It's a critical component for whatever we decide to do. And it's curriculum that we need to, really engage with our students. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. In fact, I might take that a step further to say, like, if there's a subset of the land, I'm just trying to think this through, like, there's a subset of the land for which we decide, like, this really, we can't do programming on it, makes more sense for conservation. Like, why should the school district own that? Like, that doesn't feel like.
For East Bay.
Yeah. Is there a partnership that can be worked out with East Bay Mud? If there's a way we could be made financially whole for the land to facilitate that, because I don't know that we need to be stewards of land that we're not putting to use for some purpose for the school district, because, now if it's land that's being used, if there is something that I'm missing, please, I'd be happy to be informed on that. But I would love to see as much as possible, given we have this opportunity to be used for programming and for opportunity to continue to enrich our students. That was what the other one was just, the partnership with the city of Orinda. And since that can bring in some funds, like, just because we have a lot of needs, how much funds do we think we could bring in through a partnership with camps and things like that?
I don't know.
much.
Our experience with the fields has been, it doesn't really bring in much money, but they do maintain the fields for us.
Field rentals versus like full camps could be.
True.
And their staffing and their.
No, I just don't know how profitable, I mean, I know that they charge for camps. I know with other private entities
Yes.
charge for camps around here. There's quite a delta. So I just wonder if there's like an opportunity here for the good of the district and the land and the use of the land. You have to be fed back.
Yeah.
I think that through.
We have identified some places out there.
Yeah.
In the greater California of that do have working relationships like this, running really successful, wonderful, like supportive curriculum programs.
I can think of, some private camps like in the
Right.
reservoir, for
There's
example.
camps, right, but not only that, but they actually have a property like this, and they're running like true curricular programs, and then summer camps and so on. And it's partnerships through cities and nonprofits, that if this was the direction that the board was going, that we would like to organize actually some trips and see it, between Sarah, myself, any board members, and see, like, is this, what could this look like? And then we can start moving forward, but we just weren't even quite sure what it is.
And this is, just to say, like, to underscore this point, like, and actually, we've had a great working relationship with the city, and
Yes.
not to deter that, but there are other entities, potentially private nonprofits, that run camps that could be maybe better choices for us for this, given the uniqueness of the land and the uniqueness, and then our ability to continue to fund things like ongoing programming during the school year and staff support and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Let alone the maintenance of the area.
I think my first choice would be to try to pursue conversations with the city before we go to an council.
It's a good starting point. I just think it'd be nice to know what all our options are and not leave a lot of money on the table, so to
Right.
speak.
No, I
Then we could be
understand that.
using
I
it
just
for
think,
other things.
that's part of what makes our community so great, is having the city-school relationship and the programming that is run by the city. And, if there's a way for us to extend that. I hear you on not leaving money on the table.
Yeah, no, and it's not just about the funds, but it is, I
Yes.
mean, there's lots of things we want to do, and I would hate to be hamstrung like during the school year for things we could do because we just don't have funding options. So I think the city relationship has been great too.
Mhm.
So
Could we, potentially could do it like Basque, like have a separate fund for it, director, coordinator, or whatever, if it's able to, if we have those.
I'm listening and looking.
I know.
Not separate fund, it will be in general fund, but we can create separate resource
Yes.
that everything will be.
Everything runs, so it's a separate fund, yeah.
For
Nature, right?
nature,
It's not a separate enterprise fund.
but not for curriculum, because if it goes through.
At this point, yeah, I spoke with CDE and.
You did, okay.
Yeah.
Be more of an
Yeah, at
outdoor
this moment,
education type fund. or-
But it's still separated, so it would be clean with regards to revenues coming in there, expenditures coming in, and we're running it all through this one resource.
Mhm.
Okay,
I'd be
Yeah.
interested to see or visit or whatever other school districts
Great.
who have similar programming. And they also have partnerships with East Bay, or not, is it in the county or is it,
not here.
okay. Mhm. But they have those partnerships that are similar.
Yes. Yes. Some are smaller scale, some are much bigger scale.
Okay. Mhm.
So what would that look like here? I think there's a lot of enthusiasm. It was just like, how does that look like today?
So I'm also in the option B camp for what it's worth. I think that it's really unique in seeing some of those old deeds that we have this property and that it sits on historical land and it's a special part of Orinda. And so I don't feel comfortable putting it into conservation without making sure we're not missing a chance to utilize it for the students of Orinda and for the community in general. And so that's why I sit in option B. I think programming wise, there's like endless possibility. I raised my hand to go see good programs with you. But just history, social sciences could be there, environmental, biology, like there's a lot that can be tied in there. So I don't want to just give that away at this point. I think in terms of how much of it is used and versus put into conservation really depends partially in the cost of maintaining the whole thing versus part of the thing of the property. If we put some of it into conservation, is that alleviating some of the cost generally because it needs less maintenance? I don't know. But if it did, would that allow us to run a program that we otherwise couldn't run because we're not spending as much on the entire piece of property?
My understanding, just not to interrupt, but the
Yeah.
fire mitigation is really different if East Bay Mud owns the property or if we own the property. So East Bay Mud's obligation in their parcels is they don't have to limb up the trees and clear the debris. They don't have the same obligations that the school district has for fire mitigation. And so that may also play a role in the property that whatever number acres the school district owns, because I don't believe East Bay Mud, I believe, has an obligation to have a 100-foot break all around the entire perimeter of their property and maybe some breaks throughout the property, but not the same obligation to maintain and clear the trees and debris within the property.
That's helpful. And then one other thought about conservation. I think number one, I need to know how much land we're talking about here. This is all like the work has to be done. And I appreciate you starting the digging and the East Bay Mud, but I have to know exactly what we're talking about. And from there, if we were talking about this quite a bit over the last year, like if we don't put something formally into a conservation, does that allow for more flexibility? So if it turns out we could use more of this property for programming, but we've put it into a conservation easement or something, then we don't have that option anymore. Like what are our rules around that so that we preserve our ability to use it in the best way possible for students and as well as conservation, but leave those options open. Again, I think that's very dependent on how much property we're talking about, what the rules are butting up to East Bay Mud and a watershed and all of those things. But I think there's too much possibility to really hamstring ourselves by
I worry about
putting into
that
a
as
binding
well.
agreement.
Okay.
That's where the surveying really comes
Yes,
in.
step one.
Yeah. Step one is surveying my mind.
So let's get to that then. So that really is this niche area, but it is a lot of it is around money. And we do want to make sure that it's self-sustainable. So we feel that it must be self-sustainable through the partnerships and grants to avoid general fund contribution. We are looking to partnership with city and others, nonprofit support such as FONA. We need to clarify what is our partnership with regards to finances, or what does that look like? Legislative allocation. We do have the funding available sitting with the city, not there yet, but it's available through legislative allocation. So Assembly Member Bauer can to support, but it is to support conservation of the property at this moment. So we would have to propose our proposal of what that looks like. We have been meeting with her representative and David Biggs, productive meetings. They know we have a workshop today, and we'll meet to debrief as well. They just couldn't be here. But they understand that and they know that the first thing that has to happen is the lines between East Bay Mud property lines. They need to be determined how much land we're talking about. And then we'll talk about the terms that we need to agree to. The staff resources, effective programming and curriculum is supported by effective and dedicated staff. So if we're going to move forward with this, we need to figure out what does that look like? Dedicated staff has to be supported through resources to ensure quality programming in the area. So our next steps, and it sounds like I think at least I captured a couple of those things, is East Bay Mud Partnership and Property Collaboration. So we are in touch with the right people. We're working on it. They're going through the paperwork, and I think we're meeting probably as early as next week there to walk the property. They want to see, like, what is this land they own on our land, as they said. So that's good. want to do the survey. We feel the same way. So we actually have some people already, we're just trying to schedule that, but just got some contacts for I mean, not every, you have to have the right people interested to, the right people for the right job, right? The surveys. And then,
Does East Bay Mud have a surveyor that they recommend that they?
yeah, so that's also, we want to do that together too. It's not just, yeah.
It feels like it should be a joint effort.
To Hillary's point, for the different consultants, do they recommend consultants?
Well, I'll talk to them actually.
Yeah.
But so far, we've just been working on our own.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wondering.
And
Mhm.
I mean, when I think of most of the East Bay Mud properties I've been on, like, I mean, they're usually like fenced in some ways, like.
That's literally what they did. Well, that's what the original deed says, that they should be fenced, but.
Okay, well, I mean, it would probably, just to avoid confusion in the future, might not, be, but I understand this is a fairly rugged area for them to get in and try to start fencing, but maybe that's what's needed. Compared to some of their properties, it's quite
Yeah.
small, so.
Yeah.
They have ways of doing this.
And then we.
Also, I was just saying, that's actually also good for us, right, safety of the
Yes.
children and just.
Yes.
people
It
getting
would
in.
help us if they.
Correct.
fenced their
I'd love it if they,
property.
that's right, I get this, it's a good thing, I'm just.
May address some of the liability issues.
Yeah.
And the cost
Yeah,
too.
and the cost. So so we are request for proposal,
We can't do it till we know the number
right,
of property.
but at the same time, we are a little time, because we want to make sure that the work is done in the right months.
Mhm.
So it needs to be done when the trees are dormant, when the birds are not there, those kind of things. So there are some timelines.
At least do it in the area that we know.
Yeah, so we
Kitchen
could
area,
possibly
basically.
start, exactly, so we could start doing in a certain areas, to release, like, we could limit the RFP, yeah. So we're gonna
feel
work
like-
on that.
I feel like that's what we should do, is start with that area we know we would be interested in using and see what the RFP for that, get that out, get quotes
Mhm.
back, get that work done during the dormant period.
Mhm.
Because we may end up not, if we're going to conserve 5 acres, or we may not want to do any work in that area
Sure.
anyways.
Yeah, I agree.
And then, the securing of the financing, I mean, some of this was dependent on which way we go, continue, I mean, we need to start working on how we're gonna fund this.
The school district that you referenced that has similar partnerships, have they also partnered or received grant money from the National Trust for Historic Preservation?
I don't know. I don't
Just
know.
wondering
I
if
don't
there's
know.
something.
We'll need to really dig into what are they doing, yeah.
Yeah.
The other next steps, I heard survey clearly, other,
We talked
Steps.
about goats.
oh yeah, clearing some stuff there, yeah, too.
I mean, I feel like the first three there are a good start to then get into that fourth
Yep.
one
Yeah.
in terms of, what can be accomplished right now.
And continuing to talk to the city and to RBK's office and people so that it would, at some point, we have to present all of this, I think, to RBK's office so that they,
Yeah.
well, particularly once we have the survey results and actually know how big
Yeah.
our parcel is.
Yeah. Yes.
Because I think there's probably a lot less land to conserve than we originally thought. And
Yeah, we're not sure, yeah. Yeah.
And what we originally applied for, that $4.5 million grant we originally applied for, was more in line with what
What
we're talking about
Yes,
doing now. And
correct.
so we need to kindly point that out to them in a way that they understand.
Yeah.
That there isn't the land to conserve in the way maybe they thought it's already conserved because it's East Bay mud land.
Right, it's just continuing those conversations,
Yes.
so they're informed of what we're doing,
Yeah.
learning.
Because we've learned a lot of new information through this process.
Well, that was what I had.
Commenter.
Did the board have any more comments? And then I will go ahead to public comment.
I mean,
I'm just checking my notes real quick, sorry, because I did have my question around maybe for an understanding other programs that we like across the state or elsewhere. If they were willing to share some budget information, I was reviewing and preparing for today, thinking like, I don't really have an idea of, is it a part-time teacher who kind of, part-time at one school, part-time at another one? There just seems to be a lot open-ended. So to the extent that other districts could kindly share budget information, I think that's
I
helpful.
would
And
just add on to
construction-wise,
that funding sources also
Yeah.
for that.
yeah, if they're
Yes.
in California, they face similar situations.
Right, exactly. So how they're funding it,
Yeah.
yes.
And curriculum, what does that look like
Mhm.
for elementary versus middle school? Right.
And then I can share Eve's question around how much revenue could be generated by camps if that was, I do like the idea of working with the city and continuing to, I think it is a unique and special partnership that the fields are used by the broader community, as is Wagner Ranch Gym and other places. So that's a nice starting point. But truly, dollar-wise, how much would that really bring in?
And then I know other school districts in the past have visited. Can we still do that? I mean,
Mhm.
the MOU that have expired said it was just for Orinda students.
Oh, you mean here?
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
I think our deed said that too.
Yeah, so can we do that?
That would be
Something
the
we-
exploration with East Bay Mud,
Yeah.
a new partnership.
So-
Mhm.
Well, and I don't know, if the original deed said it was for
The original MOU was the Orinda.
the Orinda
students. Mhm.
MOU, but what about our deed from East Bay Mud?
Oh, school only.
But does it specifically say Orinda school only?
I thought it did.
I thought that 78 MOU did. I don't
Yeah.
remember it. in the-
We can clarify. And maybe these are things that, I mean, these.
These are things that we can renegotiate.
Yeah.
And maybe we do need to split the parcel
Yes.
so that it is its own parcel. And if we did that, we could redetermine the use of that parcel and what new deed would be created.
Mhm.
If there are really videos of that 1950, whatever board meeting, if we can understand what they were thinking. Because it seemed like, that there was some talk or must have been a need to build schools, right? And that
That's when they were
coming
building
down the
all this.
line,
Right.
we need some property and here's some property. Eventually a school was built there.
Right.
So it's hard to, it's kind of interesting to think about how that all went down, but impossible to know really. But I agree. I think as one giant parcel, we might need to break it up.
We'll look through some historical notes upstairs.
Find the minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that may be on the list of things to do is to look into splitting the parcel into two.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Well, and also determine if East Bay Mud has any other records that
Mhm.
haven't been shared with us.
Mhm. And that's what they're doing right now, actually. Yes,
Oh.
yes, yeah, yes.
And related to that, and one of my last notes, sorry, just want to make sure I said everything.
Yeah.
If it does need to be, it possibly would need to be split into two parcels or more because of the school now being on there. So if we're talking about conserving some of it, could you have a functioning school on a parcel that's actually partially conserved? I don't know, right? That seems a little messy.
That seems messy
Frankly.
to me too.
So I think the
So you
use-
mean parcel 2 as a whole?
Right now, parcel 2, yeah, right now.
Parcel 2 includes the school and the.
Right, so if you said like, we're gonna conserve X number of
Right.
acres. Okay, but that also, it just seems pretty messy to have a public
I
school.
think you'd want a
operating
town's
on a
own
parcel.
parcel.
That's also
Mhm.
under conserved land.
So future school boards would know what was intended.
Right. Yeah. And then what's the current zoning, to Eve's question,
Mhm.
of that piece of property?
Cases that put city limitations on the ability to sub.
No, that's a good question.
Mhm. Right, if it's 20 acre zoning,
Yeah.
you may not be able to do it.
Right.
The current revenue we receive that's very minimal from the city for the fields, where does that go into?
It's
Well,
all
right
set by
right
the
now-
expenses.
Right now, we're not getting revenue, they're just maintaining.
They're just
the field.
maintaining.
Mhm. So we're not paying them for maintenance.
Right.
Eventually, the way the MOU is structured is, should they be making more money, there's like a table, basically. If they make this much money, they keep it, but they pay for maintenance. If they make this much money in the next bracket, they actually give back the money.
Okay.
So we meet every year to determine and we look at their budgets.
It's been like 6 years now. How many years have we?
Yes.
They started pre-pandemic.
Right, no, I remember.
But then if they
think you're
do
right.
make money, it goes to general fund or it goes to another?
It comes back to our general fund, yes. Yeah. Which we're not there yet.
Yeah.
But we have had agreements like when, if there's any revenue, for them to buy machinery or some, to actually upgrade the fields, which benefits again, our fields.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and we discuss those in 2x2s. Todd Trimble brings in reports and We've been really good partners. But I think we're negotiating that, I want to say next month, comes to December meetings to the board, the MOU.
That's right. Right, well, if there's no more board comment at this time, why don't we go ahead with public comment?
Okay.
So first, I have Bill Hudson.
Hi, can you understand me? I have a child and a grandson in preschool. It's a sort of new experience.
New illnesses.
Yeah. So this is a lot of good information. So I've got some sort of things that are maybe some ideas that I've been thinking of. First of all, if you're going to do all this survey for the animals, I would hope that they would do that in a way that could be used for instruction later. I mean, say this stuff about the wood rats and so forth, so the teachers can use it. In terms of funding it, to me, you've got $2 million to use. You've got $500,000 from Fund 40, which you can recover from FEMA, and then the 1.5 from the legislation. Say you could use $1 million of that for facilities and maintenance. And again, there's no question now maybe than there was before. But take $1 million of it and use it as an endowment. You get $50,000 every year, or whatever. Or programming, or however you want to use it. I would also suggest when you get to the maintenance, set up a schedule and let people like phone it, pick items off it, and see what they can do. We've been keeping it functional for the last 15 years. Let's see, I would invite you to think about what this could be. This is kind of if its future is assured, teachers are going back, they're going back, the kids are going back, they know they're going back. They can do long-term stuff. You could have national type program. You could have programs that could go through high school for the kids that are interested. There's no support now because it really hasn't been efficient, but you get one and see. One ought to be I don't know why one says they're not a source, because with EFO, the nature area was a huge attraction, and the nature area was a community project. If you can't build things, there's with your budget, there's community out there waiting to do it. So let's see. The other revenue raisers are Basque. Tourists had tons of kids coming to Basque. That would raise money. Also, in the past, we've had school districts. In the past, they actually came. They would pay as a field trip to come by nature programs if we develop something there. They're jealous as hell of that area. So I'll put this on a long-term basis, get a vision for it, get it going, and just watch it turn into something, another reason to live in Orinda. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Kathy Barrett.
Thank you all for having this session. I'm Kathy Barrett. I've lived in Orinda since 1975, and I passed out to you something that I quickly developed in the last 2 days as a response to Aida's question at September Friday the 13th meeting when you were asking us about maintenance costs. What you have is a little folder that shows almost all, more than 50 of our Eagle and Gold Scout projects. From the time we became a nonprofit grassroots entity under the East Bay Community Foundation in 2005, when there was the threat of a courtyard on the Olive Grove. Since then, we have achieved 501c3 status, and we have, over that whole time, supported the Eagle Scout, Gold Scout projects. And if you look at the first little paper beside, that gives you an estimate of the added value of these amazing projects, of which FONA actually gave each of the scouts a $200 little stipend, and they had to raise the money from the community and their friends and family. And it usually was little teams of at least 5 students. They're all sort of in high school. And we estimated that the value of that volunteer work and those implementations were averaged about $1,500 per project. And you can see how many there are many more. In fact, from 2005 up until our 501c status. We knew of other projects that we supported and that took place, but they aren't in our records. The second little page shows you, I think what Aida was most interested in, which was and Bill alluded to, is the input of community resources under the supervision and guidance of FONA. Now, throughout this whole process for the Eagle Scouts and whatever to the present, and for all of these community projects, they've always been under the direction and approval of your facilities director. They've never been going on out there, add whatever. They've always been approved, and they all have always had records of sign-ins. My husband has been sending Stuart our regular sign-ins since last November, and it has all of our student and our boys team charity parents and National Charity League parents. All of them are listed on things that Reg has been sending for almost a year now. And that is what we used to do for years under Taurus. So there's been a lot of district supervision and head nodding about the good work that we've been doing. And you'll see that second one. Rotary, not just our Orinda Rotary. And see the last page too, that's our FONA value. I mean, $900,000 worth of maintenance and input over this last 15, 20 years. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And next I have Steve Danziger.
Hi, Steve Danziger. I'm a board member of FONA and a resident for 30 years. My head's kind of spinning today. Some of you may feel the same way. I've only been on the board for less than a year. I've lived here a long time, but I didn't know some of this information I got today, so it was informative and enlightening too. The FONA has been supporting programs there without any input from the school district or the city or anyone for many years. In fact, the property's been school district property for 68 years, and we've been doing programs there for about 40 without any input. So I heard, the comments that there didn't seem to be much interest during the meeting that President Hoxie went to with Orinda 1 and others. I feel that the community will support this program, and I intend to talk to Orinda 1 and some of the other local charities about this and see what we can get going from the community, inside the community as well as outside the community. I know Ms. Coleman has talked about other grants available for these kind of programs, and I think there would be. I think we'll have to look into that, and maybe we can partner with the school district to look into other funding sources. But for now, I heard some suggestions that maybe we can do the work just outside of the garden area, maybe the kitchen area, maybe where the pond is, if we could get that work done there. I don't know that there's really a lot of work to do in that area, especially around the pond. Not a lot of tree work there. There is going to be tree work by what we call the kitchen area, and probably a little bit more in the garden. But if we can get that going at least and be able to do some of our programming there, that would be extremely helpful. And I think if we working with Stuart, especially if we could get some temporary fencing maybe around the pond area and down through that area toward the kitchen, maybe we can get out there and start getting our volunteers in there to clean it up without going any further than that area right there. So thank you for this, and we look forward to hearing some more. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker is Taurus.
Hello, I would like to offer my help. I've been there 46 years and I know the nature area like the back of my hand. And I've worked with all of the other nonprofits. I've worked with East Bay Mud. A lot of the questions that came up, I can answer. I'm assuming you have the number of the permit with East Bay Mud, it's 225. And I actually have a copy. The last person who took the effort to renew it was Ed Silvas. So we've gone through 2 maintenance supervisors without renewing that permit. It is true that the Friends of the Nature has not contributed to your budget. But over the years, the Friends, through the community, all the other nonprofits, we have spent over $200,000. Everywhere you look in the nature area, the infrastructure was through the work of the Friends working with the community. And the nature area has 6 ecosystems. It doesn't make sense to me. And I know this is a safety issue, there's a liability issue, et cetera, to bring kids out and set them down at a picnic table when you have 6 ecosystems that they could be exploring. And I understand the tree work needs to happen, but the Friends of the Nature, and we have over 100 volunteers, could come in and they could clear the trails. We do need to work with East Bay Mud because there's been a lot of erosion. So I'm hoping that I will have at least another 10 years of teaching there. That's my wish. And I offered Aida the fact that I am living on a pension. I could be hired by the school district and you would only have to pay a small amount for my services because I can't collect anymore because I have a pension. So that is something to consider. It may be that I'll have to turn it over to a younger generation, and that is fine. But as we go forward, what is the point of, other than conservation, what is the point of doing all this work if the students don't get to experience it with the teachers and their parents? So that's where I'm focused. Thank you.
Thank you. So I believe that's all of our public comment today. Back to the board for final thoughts or direction. The whole point today is really to give Aida and the staff direction so that they know what to do next, how to proceed.
We've covered pretty much everything. I think it's just a complicated piece of land, more complicated than I knew before we understood even that the property lines might not be what we thought they were. And I think that digging, and this is the pragmatic side of me, wants to know exactly what those lines are and who owns what and what East Bay Mud is willing to collaborate about or not before making any determinations about programming. In the meantime, I think there's plenty to just gather around what could be done, what the possibilities might be, if that is turned into a more usable space for students again. In fact, it's kind of an opportunity. It's been closed for a while, but it also is an opportunity to create something with more value. So I think we've kind of covered in terms of what I wanted to say today, but those pieces around who owns what and what is possible and what the limitations are really kind of the first step for me to be able to make any more decisions.
Can I clarify a couple of things?
Absolutely.
I know we don't comment back on public comment, but I just want to clarify a couple of things that have come up, if that's okay.
Definitely.
One is this presentation today was about like this moment, this current status and kind of moving forward. As I mentioned, I mean, we didn't go back and say what is all of the things that historically have been done and programming, which have been wonderful and amazing, right? And there's no question about what Friends have done to support the nature area. There were comments in the agenda on the presentation have said that currently, when we're talking about finances, the district budget is not supported by the FONA budget. And when we said there's no interest from the parents would, I mean, if we build it, they will come.
Definitely agree.
So if we build a strong programming, they would love it. When we say no interest, there's no money to support another thing. we're running a budget priority committee to see how we can actually make the district solvent. So I actually, what I heard some comments about, we're going to go get funding approach, it would really possibly be counterproductive and not going with the vision of what we're working. So I feel like there's been quite a bit of parallel work that hasn't been actually productive. We have to clarify East Bay Mud. We have to clarify us. I have the permit that's been referenced that expired in 2009. We have to get permits, collaboration. What is East Bay Mud willing to do now? What are we willing to, how to partner? We can't rely on things that happened 20 years ago. They may, and how does that look like? What does that look like? I agree that it is all about the students. The fact that it's not used by the students, what is to, I think Eve's point is, what's the purpose? Then if we can't actually run the programming, but that programming has to be run with the vision of how is it supporting our current curriculum? How is it innovative? What does that look like? And who's going to run that? I don't know. We open up, all of our positions are open widely, and the best candidate is hired. Whatever that looks like, right? We haven't even designed it yet. It sounds like we would go and visit some currently successful programs. So we have some clear next steps. My concern is that we have a budget committee with our foundations that we're now starting to also, and we will determine, it looks like we're going to do some work on what programming looks like that will drive the fundraising. I think one of the things on there is clarifying our relationship with FONA as well with regards to the budget. There's a clear fundraising and a bylaws on FONA website of what the money is for. So I think we need to clarify what that looks like and how that partnership works. And maybe a meeting should be set up soon.
Well, and I think what you said earlier about the timing of the tree work is important too, because we don't want to miss this dormant season to get some work done.
Right, but I think that we've given direction on that.
Yes. Yes, you hear it.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Well, it sounds like, we've got direction. We
Yes.
know what we're going to do next.
Thank you.
We
Yeah.
have more to continue to investigate and discuss. But I think it was really helpful to lay it all out, and I appreciate the slides you
thank you.
put together and all of the work you did to get us to this part of this understanding so we can figure out how to move forward productively. So
Yeah.
that's really helpful.
Yeah, no, I'm
And it just
excited.
seems that we're in learning mode with all the things you're unearthing, all the, deeds.
A little cleanup,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's both. I'm
cleansing.
starting, but then also continuing.
Like,
to-
yeah, yeah.
moving forward, yeah.
Hopefully there's.
Yeah.
And as one of the board members that's kind of assigned to the nature area, I'd be happy to go visit.
Be great. Yes, yeah,
Sites wherever.
sounds good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. This meeting is adjourned. Oh, is
Okay.
there a motion? to adjourn? Yes, we need a motion.
Hillary, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
This is a nice second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
There you go. There you go. It's eager, right?
So I apologize for being late.